Hi everyone, it's Lynn from DevineCentral. I am here today to talk to you about tarot myths. Now, tarot becomes such a personal journey for all of us that we develop our preferences over time. But when those preferences then become rules that we pass on to new tarot readers, well, it just becomes a mixed bag of confusion for them. Because in all reality, we're told first and foremost there are no rules in tarot. Yet, here we are. I'm going to divide this into 3 parts, 8 or 9 myths per part, because I just think it's too big for one video. So I will attach at the end the next videos as they come out. Please hit the bell if you want to be notified when that happens. So let's start with number 1. The sitter must touch the cards in order to infuse their energy into them for a good reading. Now, I think that's a bunch of hooey. I believe that spirit transcends time and space. So I don't feel that they have to touch the cards in order for their spirits to talk to my spirits. And I do believe that the cards are spirit driven, or the pulling of those cards are spirit driven. So there's no magic in the cards. There's no magic in touching them. I think it's more of a process to draw the sitter into the experience of having the cards read, is by having them touch them. Now, I don't personally want anyone touching my cards, because the first time that a sitter touched my cards, they mishandled them and creased the edge of one of my favorite decks. And I am picky about my decks. So I would prefer to shuffle the cards. Now, a happy medium could be that you shuffle the cards, you divide it into piles, and you have them place the palm of their hand on the pile that they want read from. So that would still give the same experience without you risking having your cards damaged by someone that doesn't know how to shuffle them. That would be number 1. 2 would be you have to cut the cards with your left hand. Okay, so some say that the left hand is linked closer to your subconscious mind, and that allows your intuition to better flow into and be involved in the readings. Others say your left hand is just simply closer to your heart. So why does that matter? Well, I guess it's to better set the intention of your reading, or to better focus your energy so that you can have a better reading. And, honestly, it's hooey. I've done so many fairs and festivals, and frankly, you don't have time for a lot of ritualistic things when you're trying to get a reading done in a certain period of time. I have done thousands of readings by now without cutting the cards at all, and it has not been a problem for me to give a good reading, much less with my left hand. So this is not a rule, this is a myth. Number 3 is a question. Should you read without a question? So I think the real question is, can you read without a question? I've had readers tell me that if a sitter doesn't take the time and the effort to put together a question for them, they are not going to put in the time and effort to do a reading. And frankly, I think that's insane. Christiana Gaudet, who's a national educator in tarot, all things tarot, she prefers to start with a cold reading. She wants to see what she can see. Then she asks the sitter, gee, did I hit on everything that you needed, or are there any specific questions regarding what I've said or what I haven't said today? Now, see, that works for me too. For me, a question in the beginning just muddies the water of a reading for me, because now my brain is tainted toward or slanted toward whatever they want to know, as opposed to first and foremost, what messages are being sent to me by spirit. So I like to be free to see what I can see and say what I see. And 9 times out of 10, the sitter will resonate with something or all of what I said. But that starts the conversation so we can move on. And quite frankly, there's always a question, because if the sitter is either doesn't have a question, or is too afraid to say it, or doesn't want to say it for whatever reason, the question then becomes either, what does the universe want me to know? Or what message does spirit have for me today, right? Number 4 is you can't get an effective reading long distance. Now, if you believe as I do that, again, the cards drawn are spirit driven, then you almost have to believe in the concept that time and space don't exist in the spiritual realm. And therefore, spirit's with us all the time, everywhere. Today, there are more and more tarot readings and Reiki sessions being done remotely, either on Zoom or over the phone or just spiritually. And I think COVID had a lot to do with that. And people that before would never consider to have a remote reading now are willing to because they've had to do other things remotely and realize that it works. So I think that the in-person now is just more for the experience, but it's certainly not because it can provide a better reading. I have a video on this long distance reading. I'll post it at the end of this video. Number 5 is a little controversial. It is that the cards are a portal to the underworld. Now, to me, this is a fear mainly of religious people. But divination has been mentioned throughout the Bible in different modalities like dowsing or the reading of bones or prophecy. And that's just to name a few. There's a bunch more. And in fact, I think that most religions teach us that when we die, our spirits live on. That is a collective belief of religions. And in fact, if I'm honest with you, it's deep in my own faith in God because I believe that God has entrusted our spirits and our angels to watch over us, and therefore they and he are with us at all times. Now, I think that God has a lot of ways of getting through to us, and spirit guides are one of them. So that's all I'm going to say on the subject, but I do want to mention that I believe in and I practice respect for other people's right to their beliefs. And I do address this in a video called Dealing with Tarot Haters. I will put that down below. Number 6 is you should never ask yes/no questions of the tarot. Now, I have to agree that tarot isn't really built for that. It's not that it can't give you a direct answer because sometimes the answers will scream out at us. But for a specific yes or no answer, it just seems so final. And as we know, our power of a choice, or our free will, if you want to call it that instead, supersedes everything that comes before it. So the minute you lock in an answer, yes, this will happen, any number of things can happen either by you or by somebody else that will totally change the direction and therefore make that answer irrelevant. So if you want to ask something that's yes or no, consider rephrasing it in a way that is not a yes or no question, or just simply use a pendulum. Number 7 is your first deck needs to be gifted to you. Why? Some say it's because the gift is of greater importance and it gives you a stronger bond with the spiritual world. Well, I say that the only deck or decks that strengthen your bond are the ones that speak to you. And rarely can someone else pick a deck that can do that. And if they do, it's probably by accident. I remember my first deck, the one that really spoke to me. It was the Anna K. I love that deck to this day. And I don't even think I picked it. I think it picked me. So I think it's a silly myth. Number 8, you should never buy a used deck or use another reader's cards. Now, I think this is, again, all hooey. Hey, I guess if you buy a used deck and you don't know where it came from and you don't know how it's used, if you feel concerned about that, then you should clear that deck. But I think any deck can be cleared. And I don't believe that they hold any bad energy as long as you remove or release that energy. Now, I won't personally buy a used deck myself because I'm just too picky about the care and handling of decks. It would bother me to have to read with a deck that had wavy cards because they got hit with liquid, or that somebody creased a corner, or that somebody, God forbid, wrote on the deck. I mean, I guess that's okay if it's your deck and you want to do that. But for me personally, I care too much about the cleanliness of my decks. So that's the only reason why I wouldn't buy used. I buy used tarot books all the time, and I love doing that. But the decks, I prefer new. And you know what? I don't mind sharing my decks with somebody that I know for a fact is going to respect my deck, and that somebody that knows how to shuffle it and handle it. That would be fine. And furthermore, I would never pick up somebody else's deck without asking permission. But you know what? Those aren't rules. That's just a matter of being respectful. Okay? And the last myth in this first part of a 3-part series would be you should use different decks for different questions, like love or money or health, etc. Now, when we read a deck over and over and over again, and we look at certain cards in certain ways, or certain cards affect us in certain ways, Spirit picks up on that. And when they want to get a message through to us, they know what cards should appear in order to get those messages through. That is if you believe that your readings are spirit driven. So a friend of mine just shudders at the thought of using a different deck for something specific, because frankly it slants the energy of that deck specifically toward that particular area, and therefore cannot get other more important messages to you if you're not looking for them. It's all about setting the intention. See, so I will say this: there are heavier decks for heavier issues and lighter decks for lighter issues. If I am sitting down and doing a reading, whether it be remotely or in person with somebody who's really struggling with their spiritual path, I might use Osho Zen or some other, fairly heavy or more philosophical decks. But if I am at a show, or if I am at a bridal shower, I may use the Everyday Witch. I'm not going to come in with something really heavy and or allow someone even to sit in front of me with anything super heavy. It just doesn't fit the occasion. And there's nothing wrong with picking a deck that fits the occasion. I switch decks at events only because if something isn't working for me. So I have my favorite decks, and if one just doesn't feel right or isn't working, then I just switch to another deck. And I also switch decks when I'm reading for children. So I always like to use, or I always make sure I have a child deck with me, or something that would be more appropriate for a child. And I'm going to address that issue in one of the upcoming videos about reading for children. So this is it for this video. I would love to hear your opinions down below in the comments on any of these that you feel strongly about. And I want to reiterate that I don't want to get into a religious discussion with anybody, because that's so personal and private, and it's very important, and I want to be really respectful of you and of that. But if you would like to know when I put out the second video, please just ring the bell and we'll let you know. Thanks. Take care. From Tallulah and I will see you next time. Bye.